Okay, everyone, welcome to this webinar. I'm very sorry that we are 1 minute late here, but we entered and we started a very interesting discussion with our panelists today. So we missed the mark when we should have played the video. So everyone, welcome to this webinar with just 3, but super special guests who are also going to be part of Present to Succeed conference. All of the 3 people that you are seeing here are going to be some of our speakers on April 28th at Present to Succeed. Now, let me introduce them very, very quickly. You can immediately start asking your questions and start typing your questions in the chat on LinkedIn so that we can bring them in here in the so-called Restream studio. And we'll be able to answer those questions, or at least we will try to answer as many of your questions as possible. So who is with us today? Obviously, first, my name is Boris, but that's not important. I'm not the important person here. The others are the important ones. So let's start with someone who is based in the Netherlands. Her name is very hard to pronounce for people outside of the Netherlands. She already shared with us that normally people call her Becky, which is kind of strange, but her original name, let's call it, her name is, and you have to correct me if I pronounce it wrong, okay, so stay with me on this one, is Frauke. Was it right? Was it okay?
Very good, yes,
okay,
thank you.
Very good. Okay. So Frauke is joining us from, I think, Amsterdam, but she is part of one of the coolest presentation agencies in Europe and I would say in the world. It's called Mr.Prezident, and the people there are doing some incredible stuff. And Frauke is part of, and she's leading the design efforts there. So I think that she will be probably one of the best people to talk to us a little bit more about slide design, presentation design, and everything related to design. However, we have one more designer in the call. I think that currently she is in Canada.
Yeah.
Kseniia, am I right?
Vancouver.
Are you in Vancouver?
Yes.
She is from another presentation agency that was born in Ukraine that has a very original name called ochi.design. I'm from Bulgaria, and ochi means eyes.
Yeah, we have the same meaning in Ukraine.
Correct. So she is coming from the so-called ochi.design presentation agency. And in my opinion, if you that are listening to this one are hearing this presentation agency for first time, please do me a favor, do yourself a favor, and go check their website. You will thank me later. Okay, let's leave it there. And then finally, we have Spencer. Spencer, where are you right now?
I'm also in Amsterdam in the Netherlands.
You're also in Amsterdam? Brilliant. Yep. Okay, so 2 people from the Netherlands, 1 person from Ukraine that's currently in Canada, in Vancouver. Spencer has spent... Spencer, how many years have you spent with Prezi?
I was 8.5 years at Prezi.
Okay. Oh, more or less 10 years with Prezi, a company that does not need any introduction. Spencer was also part of our Present to Succeed conference at least once. At least once. And so he is joining us again on the 28th of April here in Sofia, Bulgaria. Spencer is currently doing a lot of trainings, a lot of coaching, a lot of consulting in regards to effective presentations. So we will be asking him the questions and the hard questions in regards to storytelling and delivery. So to all of you 3, are you ready for a 45 minute Q&A? Anyone? Okay. So I will be monitoring the chat. So again, a reminder to everyone who is joining us live, type in your question on hybrid presentations. This is how do I prepare, design, and deliver a presentation that has an audience that's both in front of me, but also online. That's the definition for hybrid presentation. So if you have any question related to the topic, we have 3 of the speakers of Present to Succeed conference with us right now in the next 1 hour. So I think we can ask them. So let me bring up one question to start this. Okay. And I would go, Spencer, with you first. Because it's on the storytelling component. It's on how do we build a story? Do we need to change our story, etc.? But it's on the storytelling aspect of presentations. And because I would say everyone would agree that design follows the story, let's start with the question there. So I'll bring that one up for everyone to see. Here is the question. So, Spencer, the online world is here, the hybrid world is here. A lot of people hear the word storytelling, they're reading a lot about it, they're probably and hoping that some of our listeners and someone that's watching right now or that's going to be watching the recording afterwards has been part of Present to Succeed before or has taken some courses on storytelling. However, this new world, do we need to change something in the way we build our story so that it works well when it's presented in a hybrid fashion? What's your opinion on this one?
Okay. So I think that there are many tenets of storytelling that hold true, whether that's you're speaking to a room full of people or it's a virtual audience. But I think the big thing that we have to look at is how people pay attention to things. Because, we know from previous years, there's been pieces of research that say, okay, so the human attention span is really, really short, but we know that's not really true. It's just that it's changed. That, mobile phones, love them or hate them, it's changed how we consume content. And I always say, there's this myth that, okay, we can't sit still more than 30 seconds and listen to somebody or watch a piece of content. But how is it then that we can go to the cinema and watch a movie for 2 hours, not look at our phone and be totally enthralled and gripped? And actually, Hollywood gives us good clues on how we can hold somebody's attention when we're storytelling, because they also figured out that movement is the gateway to attention. So when we think about movies, and I always use the analogy or the example of James Bond, if you take two James Bond movies, one from the 1960s and say Quantum of Solace from 2008, it's totally different. It's much faster. They use things called jump cuts. They have movement of camera, and we can totally do that in our presentation. So think about, how do I look at movement of me as the presenter and, my hands and my facial movements, but also of my design and visuals, because it's two worlds. Because the people who are listening to you virtually, if you've got a slide up on the screen, that's the main thing that they're looking at. So how is that moving? How are your visuals moving? How often do they change? So the frequency of change is really important. So I think for me, it's really about that. How do you keep a sense of movement when you're telling stories that is, keeps things moving along and nothing on the screen too long?
Okay, so the main idea here, and I will go to Kseniia and Frauke in a second. Probably what you're saying is that, and we will be asking for their opinion. Probably what you're saying is that, hey, wait a minute, it is not a bad idea to have more slides than before, because they will create movement. Ladies, please get ready to go for this one. Spencer, what about how do we create movement outside of the design, outside of the slides? Let's put it this way.
Yeah, I think there's the slides and the amount of slides, and you can even get into movement inside the slides. Then, like I said, there's how you use your body, because it's very subtle. Like every time you just see my hands here, it spikes attention. It spikes dopamine in the brain, and you'll start to think, oh, something's happening on the screen. So use your kind of body in that kind of way. And for me, the third thing is also the words that you use, because you can get people paying attention by asking certain questions, by saying things like, has it ever happened to you that this happened, ... And instantly your brain goes, has it happened to me? And so you're paying attention to what's going on. So I think you can use your words and stories in that way to, because that's what we're doing at the end of the day. We want somebody to put themselves in the shoes of the hero of the story, and has that happened to me? And how did I feel about it? So I think those are the three main components for me, like how we use our words and stories, how we use our physical self, and how we ensure movement in the slides.
All right, Frauke, we'll go to you now. And by the way, let's create a change in the way we are positioned on in this layout, because I'm noticing that our logo is kind of overlapping a little bit. So I'll do a small change. Let's see how this would go. A little bit better. So, Frauke, a question to you. What are you seeing with your customers and what are you recommending to your customers? Is it that more slides now for the online delivery are preferred? What are you seeing? What are you suggesting to your customers? What do you see once done ends up being successful, ends up being effective? Let's put it this way.
Yeah, I think Spencer is actually spot on. So what I see with our clients is that they want to grab the attention of the audience, and that's what we do with all presentations. But if you are presenting online, it's even more important to stay relevant and to be quick. So I would say a better speed on your slides and a high pace helps really to keep giving new information and keep the attention of the audience. And that's important with any presentation, but when it's online, it's even more important because they are like one click away from their LinkedIn, their Facebook, whatever. So I think Spencer is spot on with like the pace needs to be high to keep the attention of the audience. Also, you never know what kind of screen they are looking at if the people are sitting at home. So we would always recommend to like use a little bit more contrast. You don't know if they're sitting in the sun somewhere outside. So that always helps in your design. It's something really specific that can help the audience that's at home and that maybe have a less of a good quality screen. And it's unnoticeable for the people that are sitting there with you in the room. So for them, it's working. So you can have both audience with you most of the time. And to add a little bit on the physical movement, I always recommend clients when they are going to present online to stand. So not just to have like your body moving and your own energy, but also they will reflect your energy. So if you're standing there and you're reflecting the energy and you're proving your point, then that's more felt better if you're standing because you're more in an active way. So that's something I would definitely always recommend clients because it helps for yourself, but also for the audience.
All right, so I will go now to Kseniia also for a question, but before we go to her, I want your feedback on something. So my question to both of you is, okay, the pace needs to be higher, right? So that something changes in front of my eyes more often. How do we achieve, Frauke, in your case, and maybe Kseniia will confirm or will add up her thoughts here, how do we achieve that pace in terms of the design? So what do we need to do? How should people approach their slides so that the pace of the slides is faster? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the easy way is breaking up your slides. And I say that's easy, but for clients sometimes, of course, that's difficult because they need more text on screen because it's a guidance for them. But still, I would say less text on a slide, just use one big quote. You don't want to have your audience reading your slides anyway. So it even helps you to put less on a slide and just have more slides. Sometimes we're quite scared of having too many slides, and clients are often quite shocked when they see like, oh, we're going for so many slides in less time. But I would definitely recommend it, and it also helps you to break up your slides in more. Yeah.
Let's go to Kseniia now. Kseniia, do you see your customers being afraid of too many slides?
Yeah, sometimes
hundreds.
they're not comfortable with a lot of amount of slides, but the key is in movement, and I would recommend to change the type of your slides too. So if you have like a steady slide with just a title, just a text on it, I would recommend you to give another slides with a video or a GIF or a picture. So you need to change the type of the slides. Another thing that you can actually add movement with changing the layout of your slides. It's not okay when you're just demonstrating one layout for the whole presentation. So you have only one color, only one text, one font and one font size. It's boring and it's not dynamic. So you need to change the layout of your slides to bring movement into your presentation. The another thing is you can add contrasting colors. So if it's something that is important for you and for your audience, just bring another color into your slides, just make it pop, and it will bring more movement into your design.
Okay, what about, by the way, all of you, and Spencer fired this up. Spencer, let's go back to you very quickly. You started this whole thing, and I am hearing you saying this for the second time, I think, since I know you. Movement is the gateway to attention. And Kseniia and Frauke are talking about more slides. You are talking about pace. All of you are kind of confirming, hey, we need this in the online world. We need it so that we keep the attention high. However, when we talk about movement, a lot of people will probably also come up with, wait a minute, let's animate things, right? Let's put in some animation, and that is a question to everyone. What's going on with animation in the online world? What is your experience? Spencer, what are you seeing there? And do you recommend animations or transitions or any type of movement, let's say, on the slide itself when it has to be delivered, also online?
Yeah, I would definitely say yes. Don't be scared to use animations. Don't be scared to use GIFs. Don't be scared to use anything on screen that moves. But it comes with a warning. And that warning is use it with care and not to have too much movement. So it's very similar to like when you're standing in a room and you're using your hands. If you go too crazy with your hands, it becomes distracting. Whereas if you keep it to a 1 meter by 1 meter box when you're talking, then it creates engagement, but it's not distracting. And I would say the same with anything. Like if you have, say, for example, GIFs are really interesting because they're super good at bringing attention, but when it's on a fast loop, it can become, oh my God, I can't look at that. It's too much. Take it off the screen. So I always think like you need to find that, you can have very subtle movements and it will keep people's attention. It's not about taking it to the extreme. So I think that's the umbrella to think about.
All right. What about the others? Frauke, what's your thoughts on animations and transitions? What's going on in there?
I think it's really important to take into account that people maybe don't always have the best connection of internet or Wi-Fi. So I think I would stick to the basic animations, also to keep the pace up, to have things on click on your slide and to make it move and get the attention. But it's you have to be careful, and I think especially longer transitions are sometimes tricky because the connection makes it like not convey what you want to do. So I think that's our take mainly on animation. Like use it, but keep it with the basics.
All right, Kseniia, anything from your side on animations and transitions?
Yeah, of course. So at ochi.design, we try to highlight everything that is important. And if we are talking about the problem, if we're talking about something that is important for you and for your story, you can highlight it in movement, in video, or you can add some transitions from the PowerPoint or Keynote, whatever. But of course, you need to test everything. You need to test everything with a dry run. We need to actually record yourself before the actual presentation to make sure that everything working good.
Okay, so we have a question from Gergana. I'll put it here very quickly so that you can see it in a second, and I will reply in the meantime to Lisa, who is asking, can we provide captions for those participants who cannot listen to the audio currently and right now. Lisa, I don't know if you're going to hear me right now, but let's at least try it. We are currently not, for the live stream, we're currently not able to provide captions, live captions here. However, I will do my best and promise you that we are going to add captions for the recording once it's published. So we'll do our best to put some captions and subtitles for the recording so that everyone afterwards can consume that easily. This is definitely our miss, and we haven't planned for that one, so mistake on our end here. So Gergan is asking this question around the images, the movements, the fonts. Who wants to take this one? Anyone? You can raise your hand as in an online call. Anyone? Kseniia, you are on the spot right now. What's your thoughts on this question? Do you want us to ask a follow-up question to Gergana, for example?
Business vision. I feel like this question is kind of tricky because we are talking about their normal amount of movements. We are not talking about something excessive. We're not talking about something something huge. Of course, for example, we can actually analyze like Apple presentation. Yeah, it's a huge business, it's a huge company, but they always use some small animations, some small transitions. They use colors, then they use interesting fonts to bring some entertainment into their presentation. So it's not business. It's not always about their cliche images with the people, skyscrapers, people sitting in front of everyone and talking about important topic. It's not about that. You can actually bring some more life into business presentation too, and they can be successful, they can be entertaining, they can be long-lasting. They have long-lasting impression too.
Yeah, and I would support your opinion here, especially because normally business presentations are a little bit kind of they're very typical, should I say? Everyone approaches them in the same way. So whoever does something different, Gergana, maybe this is also what Kseniia is referring to. Whoever is willing and is brave enough, let's put it this way, to try something different. It might be difficult also, but whoever is able to try something different, they might win exponentially, right? So Spencer, you have something to say here, and then I'll go to Lisa's question, which is around the subtitles and the captions. Do we recommend them live as part of online presentations? So I'll go back to this one for sure. Go ahead, Spencer. What do you think?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you still see many times people build a slide and they'll put it on the screen, and even just to use something simple like fade in and out. So maybe there's 3 or 4 things that they're going to talk about, but actually by having them fade in and even fade out, because once something's you've spoken about it, you can take it off as well. And I think this comes with, okay, I need to know my content well, because I need to know what's coming in advance. But even small things like that can actually make a huge difference to, instead of having that one slide that may be up there for 30 seconds or a minute, you can break that into certain animations or things that will keep people paying attention. So think of the small things that you can check, because if I read Gergana's question right, it's like, yeah, if we're given a deck that we have to present in the way that they gave it to us, and we're not allowed to go wild with lots of different images, then for me it's okay, how do I use what I have and use the tools that I have inside whatever software platform that I'm using to create that sense of movement. And again, you'll be amazed at how tiny movements can be really powerful.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with this one. I want to show you the question of Lisa because I think it's a really important one. She can hear us just fine, which is very important. Thank you for pointing that out, Lisa. So, Spencer, what do you think here? Captions, live subtitles during online meetings and online presentations, yes or no?
Yes, definitely, for sure. I think this for me is an interesting space because it's really growing fast at the moment. You know, if we go back 5 years, the idea of how could we do live automatic captions as people are talking, and I think it's only really been in the last 2 or 3 years that we're starting to see this get better and better and to become baked into certain products. So I think it's definitely something that, especially like, you know, when you're streaming across lots of different channels, then yeah, if you can find a way to do it, I would definitely recommend it. But I go on.
Yeah, what about I was about to ask, hey, what about the position of the live captions?
Good question.
Up,
Good question.
down, overlaid or not? What are the thoughts here?
Now, it depends what you're presenting as well, because you need to think about, as one of the things that I did many times when for example, when I was using Prezi Video, now Prezi is a bit different because I have the content on the screen with me and me. But when I was doing recorded videos, I always had to think, okay, when I have the subtitles over that, I'm not going to put any design in this part of the screen because I know it will cover the content. So you may have to think in advance, okay, if we have subtitles and we have something on the screen, what does that mean? But yeah, you can easily just have like a no design zone that can help solve it.
Yeah, definitely. I will go with another one for the designers here. Even though everyone is joining the conversation, which is great. Another reminder to everyone, Lisa Girgani is everyone that's watching online right now. Type in the questions, we can see them immediately and bring them on the screen almost ASAP as soon as possible. So bring them on, and as you can see, we'll try to answer all of them. However, I want to bring a question, Spencer. If you have an opinion on this one, we'll keep you last here. All right, we'll keep you last. And I want to bring a question related to are there any tools, presentation tools, interaction tools, design tools, any tool that a business person can go check, go try, that at the end of the day, in one way or the other, will help them prepare, design, or deliver an effective hybrid presentation? Who wants to take this one? Anyone? Let's go this way. Who is going to be the brave one? I don't want to point names. Who is going to take this one?
Well,
Kseniia? Oh, okay.
that's
Frauke?
fine.
Yeah, let's go. Go ahead. What's your favorite?
Right. Well, I think for designers, we often go with Adobe, but that's of course quite difficult. You have to know a lot of tooling within it. So I think for clients, well, PowerPoint actually has a lot of options. So I would definitely recommend a lot of people to maybe take 1 hour and find a new solution for something, or find one of the new features, because there's way more in PowerPoint than we think. Even here, now we know a lot of the tools. We made first a training for our internal team because we found so many good features. And now we're actually also giving this to clients because we know they want to design their presentations themselves as well. So it was quite a funny progress to see.
Stay with us.
How PowerPoint does actually a lot of good features that really help. So I would definitely recommend to use PowerPoint and see what you can find there, because it has a lot of helpful tools to design it quickly.
All right, Kseniia, what about you? Any recommendations on favorite tools?
Yeah, PowerPoint is classic. For me, is an unbeatable choice. Yeah, like I created all my presentations in PowerPoint, so I love it. I love this tool. But of course, there are a lot of interactive presentation software and platforms, of course, like Prezi, like Slido, that can help us to create more interactive presentations. And this aspect is super important for hybrid presentations. So these tools actually allow us to incorporate some interactive elements like polls, like quizzes, and most of these tools are compatible with Zoom, with PowerPoint and Teams. So I feel like this is a great choice to explore.
Okay, Spencer, do you have something here? Any tool that you would recommend that presenters, business people, not designers, because that is definitely a different ballgame here. Any tool that you would recommend people check in regards to their hybrid presentations that's outside of PowerPoint, not features of PowerPoint, even though I agree with everyone that PowerPoint is not that simple of a tool anymore. It has a lot of things inside.
Yeah. So I appreciate I'm on this call with two designers, and I'm going to ask them both to close their ears at this point. But I think like I'm fascinated in general with the whole AI movement that's happening at the moment, and I think there is huge amounts of possibility for AI in the presentation space. And we obviously spoke about PowerPoint with things like PowerPoint Designer. I think there's like, as you see AI start to come into these platforms, I think there's some really elegant ways that they could help people, for example, just deal with bullet points, as something that we've all seen for decades that never seem to go away. But I've definitely been I'm keeping my eye on what was it called, Glimmer AI, which is like a new product that's out, so I'm on the waiting list for that to see what it's up to. But I'm also really fascinated with images, because I always think one of the hardest things for people to do, and as a designer, the hardest thing to do is find the right image. And then you get into the whole thing about the licensing of images. And so again, when you look at, I've been kind of delving into the world of Midjourney, but there's also, new platforms out that are really taking the idea of stock images, but it's a text prompt and it creates the image for you. And so I think there's one called Stock IMG, I think. So there's a couple that are just coming out, and I think there's a real interesting space that could develop. I have no idea where it will go, but I think that's definitely something to keep an eye out in the next few years.
Definitely, I cannot agree with you more. I'm bringing up a question. First, I will bring up this one to everyone very quickly because I find it very relevant to our conversation. Take a look at it very, very quickly, because I'm sure that all of you three have been asked that. I'm completely sure. Let's start with the other person in the Netherlands. How do you reply to this one, Frauke?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And also, you also notice it already in our conversations. We're quickly talking about slides. But the beautiful thing about our product being a presentation is that there is a presenter, there is slides, there is an audience, there is a connection. You want to convey your message. And we always tend to go into slides. I do that myself as well. But actually, it's really nice to also talk about, okay, there's two people on the sides, there's two parties, and you want to connect them. And sometimes it hurts to say, but sometimes you maybe have to leave your slides on the side because you want to have to look people in the eye, and also on the screen, if they're at home, you still want to make a connection with them, and your body and your personality is way more important to make that connection with your audience than the slides are. So it's a bit of a painful one. And it's always good to prepare slides, of course, because you can, if it's relevant or you have a conversation with your audience, then you can grab them and be relevant immediately. But it can also be a really wise choice to just go for a conversation instead of a presentation.
All right. Kseniia, what about you? What is your typical response when you're asked that question?
Is it necessary for you to have a presentation? Do you feel like you want to screen share, or you want just to talk about some subject? So if you don't feel like you need a presentation, just do not do it. Just use your face, your voice, your posture to bring this message. It's okay. It's okay, actually. I feel like not every client needs a presentation. So, of course.
Yeah, so I always like to say that, hey, wait a minute. Are slides adding anything to what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Are they bringing value to the whole conversation? Because not every single time you have slides that support or enhance, let's leave it at that, enhance what we're talking about and the story itself. And maybe here is the moment where we can probably add this advice where, hey, wait a minute, in an online call, isn't it also a good idea for us to have slides when they add some value? Let's say we have a table. I cannot imagine a moment where I need to present, let's say, in front of the CEO of a big company. I need to present a table full of data, but I don't have that on a slide, right? Here is the moment where that brings value to the conversation. Well, what am I going to do? To write the whole table by hand while this person is waiting for me? That's not gonna work. So at the same time, maybe from time to time, and Spencer, I will be curious to hear your opinion here. Why not? And is it a good idea for us to have slides because they are helping us? But are there moments, or can we plan for moments where we just stop the screen share or go dark, go black on the slide so that the whole focus is on us as the presenters. What do you think here?
Yeah, I think definitely I agree. I think breather slides are really good. So you can just have a slide that's up with your logo on it, or something that, because what that does is obviously bring the focus back to the presenter, and so you'll know at certain times when you want that to be just focused on you, or whether you want the backup of the slides. I would definitely say, as a quick aside before I say the main thing that I wanted to say, but I will fight for beautiful slides, because if we take the metaphor of going to the theatre, if you go to your local village theatre where the set on the stage has been knocked together with a couple of bits of plywood and very dodgy looking stuff, as opposed to you go to like a big theatre in the city where it's like this amazing set and background, yes, we still focus on the characters, we still fall in love with the story, but actually the set is very important. So I will always fight for investment of time and money and resources in a good slide deck. But what I actually wanted to say was the job of a presentation has changed. The days and situations where we can go in and say, I'm now going to stand up and talk for 20 minutes are fast disappearing. And I think, I've been banging the drum for conversational presenting for 6 years. So, but this idea that saying I can have loads of content in my presentation, I don't want to go through all of it. What I want to do is ask for directions. Thank you for giving me 20 minutes. How can we best spend this time together? And ask for directions, because if they say, well, I've got these 3 questions I really want to know about, then you can just go to that part of the presentation and present what's relevant. It's a tough transition to make, because we've had 4 decades of, standard type presentations, but I think conversational presenting is still in its infancy, and I'm a passionate believer in it.
Yeah, I will bring up a reaction by Lisa, by the way, just for all of you to see. I like that one. That came immediately after Kseniia's answer, so I think it was her that provoked that reaction in Lisa in particular. Going back to one question by Plamen, which is an interesting one, to be very honest. What are the benefits or risks of having 2 presenters? Well, now let's see that one. Can 2 presenters also serve as something that will add dynamics? Spencer, what's your thoughts here?
Wow, many things come to mind. So keeping it in the theme of this session that we're in, it's about hybrid presenting. So 2 presenters opens up lots of opportunities, because maybe one's in the room and one's virtual. So this can actually have a lot of powerful benefits. I think there's planning and preparation is going to be everything. So if you have 2 presenters, you have to work really closely together all the way through that whole process. So, and leave lots of time for practice before you go live, because that will just make the whole experience a lot better. But yeah, so I would definitely definitely advocate, as I'm thinking on my feet, about having one of those presenters virtual and one of them in the room, because I think that can rebalance who gets the prime time of the presenter almost. And that opens up a whole other question about actually in the physical room, where do you place the camera? Where do you place the people in the room? Because you want to be looking at the camera for the audience, but at the same time looking at the people in the room. So that and if you've got 2 speakers in that room, that's more difficult. So there's lots of things that come to mind. But I think in terms of keeping people paying attention, in terms of breaking up the format between different presenters, different types of content, then I think, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff you could do with 2 presenters, but you have to prepare that carefully.
Yeah, I think that everyone that's here is nodding every single time when you're saying very much like rehearsing and planning will be huge in this world.
Yeah, and maybe if I can add to that, I think so what are the benefits and the risks? I think a big benefit in general of 2 presenters is that it's a dynamic thing, and we were talking about movement and how important it is, and it's way more easy to do that with two presenters. So I think for online presentations and for hybrid presentations, it's actually really good to do it, to give it more of a balance. And then I was thinking, last week I went to a presentation and it was a live presentation, but with two presenters as well. And one big benefit of two presenters, which they used at that presentation, is that they were sort of a different tone of voice. So it was quite funny, but also because they could both have a different tone of voice, they were speaking to more people in the audience, because some people maybe thought, that presenter is really conveying the point to me and it's really engaging me. And then other people like the other one. So in general, two presenters, it gives more dynamic and also makes it easier for the audience to like one of the presenters and with that get the key message across.
Yeah, I want to bring. That's an interesting point, by the way, with the two different tones. That having two very different presenters for one session could be a really interesting scenario here for sure. I want to bring a very interesting question here. Probably, Frauke, probably you can help us here, because normally you designers are into this type of tools, and you now have digital alternatives of those things and the mirrors and all of those things. What are you saying here? Do you use flip charts somehow online?
Yeah, we use Miro quite a lot. So that's one tool that we use quite a lot, because we're not always working from the office as well. So that helps, and it gives the freedom of brainstorming and getting ideas together, although you're on different places. So I think that's one we tend to use. And actually this came up last week and we were talking about it, that we saw there was also like a Teams connection now. So in Teams, you can use flip chart. So I think we're definitely gonna discover that.
Kseniia, what about you? Have you seen a successful, in your opinion, online presentation where the presenter was not using just slides, but they were using also a flip chart as part of their delivery?
Yes, of course, because it gives attendees the opportunity to participate. And it's actually an interesting tool to keep your audience engaged. And I feel like this is the right way to keep your audience engaged with the different kind of tools. Whether it's a flip chart or poll or quiz, something like that, it's always interesting to integrate into your presentation.
Yeah, and we just need to make sure that whatever is on that flip chart, people can see it easily.
Definitely.
That one is an important one. However, I have another interesting one. The audience is becoming more and more active at the end of the webinar. That's kind of interesting also. But Davide is asking us this one. Spencer, I think this one will go to you first. However, ladies, if you have an opinion here, or if you have seen something already, have an experience with that already, let me know. Spencer, what are your thoughts here on this one?
Cool. Before I answer that, I'll just, on the last question, I'll also give a big +1 to Miro. I have been spending a lot of time in Miro recently, and I'm building a conversational presentation inside Miro. And I think it's a really interesting environment to build out a whole presentation, but also have that area where people can come in and contribute. And I think it's a really good one for like two-way dialogue that you can also span from people in the room, but also people virtually, which leads me to Davide's question about, is it a good idea to have everybody connected to Zoom? Comes with a caveat, but yes. So I think like if you've got 10 people in a room and I don't know, 50 people that are joining virtually, when you have that kind of disbalance almost, you need to pick an audience. And if it's 10 people in the room, unless they're like the 10 senior managers of your company that you have to place them, I would say, okay, I'm going to be 100% focused on that virtual audience. And I'm going to pre-plan asking everybody who's going to be in the room to bring a laptop and to join that Zoom call and to look at that kind of portion of it on their screen, because that will definitely allow you to cater to that bigger audience virtually. But it's also, I've been remote for many, many, many years. And the story I always used to say was when people are in a meeting room and there's one camera, I can hardly see people in the room. It's hard to hear people in the room, whereas when everybody's in their own little screen on Zoom, I see everybody. The experience is so much better for the people virtually when they can see the people physically in the room that way. So I would say yes, but I think you have to figure out how many is remote, how many in person, which audience do you have a feeling you need to cater to one more than the other? But sometimes you have to pick one as the focus.
Let's see if the others have an opinion. While I'm scanning for some signs that someone has an opinion on the question, Spencer, I will just add something here because I saw something very interesting in the last few, months. I was with a customer of ours delivering a training for them, and this is one of the biggest IT organizations in the world. They now have, because it's very much related to what David is asking, they now have meeting rooms that are equipped with such technology that your mind will be, what is going on here? Because I would confirm, and I will go and say the same thing as you mentioned. Hey, if there are people that are also in person, let's ask them to bring their laptop so that they can go on camera, right? And everyone online be able to see them this way also. However, I now started seeing a lot of rooms where there are cameras in various locations in the room, and also there is a camera that's, how do you call it? Like, depending on who is talking, right? It turns towards the person in the room that's talking. So there is one that's capturing the whole audience, the whole room, but also one that moves accordingly depending on who is watching. And if you have something like that inside of your organization, I don't know if we are going to ask the people to join, from their individual laptops. But I would say that this is so rare. Correct me if you are seeing it already, like in every single organization that you step in. But I would say that this is just so rare that it will be a few years before every single place where you go, every single co-working space where you go, every single location where you go, it's equipped with something like that or even better. So just my thoughts here.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Let me just add, I totally agree. I think we're seeing more and more tech come into meeting rooms, and I think yes, there's going to be this lag where most people went back to the meeting rooms they had before COVID, and now that's going to slowly change as budgets and things happen. But I see definitely how do you bring the virtual audience into the room? You can give them a seat at the table now, because you can see imagine a piece of A3 paper, so that kind of size, that's a digital screen with a camera, that you can put them on the table, give them a place at the table, so you can see the audience, you can look at the camera. So I think the hardware side of things, that there's a lot of stuff happening, but I think it will just take some time for it to kind of go to everybody.
Yeah. Does anyone want to add something here? Because I have one more question to ask. Anyone? Kseniia, you have your chance right now.
Yeah, of course. I think the faces are important, and the emotions on the people's faces are important. And when we ask our audience to turn camera on and to log into a virtual presentation, I feel like this is the best way if you have less attendees in person. I thought one day how Tony Robbins have his online events with a huge screen, and he can see actually everyone. And in this huge screen, you can Google it. It's crazy, but it works because he can see faces, and this is the one that's important for the meeting, for the presentation.
Interesting. And by the way, we have an interesting comment from David here, who is talking about the fact that this will be a long one, but the last sentence is going to be very interesting here, or the most important one. Because of the delay, people need to be coached and trained how to work with and how to manage the delay, if such, David, if such. I would say that more and more, I would see meetings and online presentations where there is minimal delay. Of course, when and if you are based in a country like, otherwise one of my favorite countries in the world, I want to point that out, Germany. The internet there is not that great, so maybe there will be some delays. But still, what are your thoughts on one last thing that we already talked about, and the previous questions were related to it? I want to bring this one as a final one because we're 50 minutes into the conversation. I want to bring this one on, hey, what do we do except for what we just discussed on the camera things, or bringing in your laptop, joining the call, even though you're in person, so that we kind of close the gap between the people that are online and the people that are in person. Who wants to take this one first? Anyone?
Yeah, I think to start the conversation about this, of course, the immersive room with all kinds of cameras and stuff, that's the big dream, but it's just not what's at our offices and our meeting rooms now. We all know like the crampy offices and the screen that doesn't really work. So of course, that would be the perfect answer. So have a good camera, make sure that it's more cameras and that one is following the one who is presenting. But it's really difficult to get it at your office today. So what I think mostly is important is like sometimes kill your darlings. So as Spencer also said earlier, sometimes you have to choose maybe between is the online group a different kind of audience than the group that's with me in that meeting room, and can I maybe depend my choice on that? So I think that's important to grasp, like what are the differences and where can I focus on to convey your message better.
Yeah, it all starts from, again, who the audience is, right? And what do we want to achieve? The two fundamental questions that we always ask every customer that we work with. Kseniia, do you have any thoughts here in regards to how do we get to a close to, not perfectly similar, but how do we close that gap between the in-person audience and the one that's online?
Engagement opportunities for everyone. And of course, you need to pay attention to the technical aspect, because without getting tech set up right, the rest doesn't really matter. So you have to give yourself time to prepare everything. You have to check the distance from the microphone. You have to pay attention to the lights in the room, because it's important to be visible for everyone. You have to check the video quality, the internet connection, and of course, you need to know technologies that you're gonna be used during this presentation.
Yeah. And again, going back, Spencer, to you, planning and rehearsal will be crucial. Yet again, the thing that every person hates to do, planning and rehearsing, turns out to be yet again important. What are your thoughts, by the way? Final question also to you. What are your thoughts on closing the gap between the two types of audiences?
I think for me, it's only eye contact. Is there any way in that room that you're going to be in, can you make it so that both audiences have your direction of sight? If that means moving the chairs, if it means moving the table, whatever, but like, because the way a lot of meeting rooms are set up, you could be standing with your back to the camera for the virtual audience. So I think it's at a small level, just can you own that eye contact somehow? And I think that goes a long way to making it better. But yeah, you could open up just this one topic for an hour. But
yeah, absolutely. So the dream is still alive for more rooms, more offices, right? To be equipped with latest and greatest technology, because also, as Kseniia mentioned, if the tech is not there, you can be super prepared. You can have the greatest story crafted, but if the tech is not there to support you, and if you don't know how to utilize it effectively, then yeah, that will be a problem. Before I go to the final, I want to leave you all to just share one final super short advice on overall effective presentations. So I'll go with Spencer. We'll come back to you first, then we'll go to Frauke. Probably, hopefully, I'm doing my best here.
Yeah, it's
And
all
then we'll go
good.
to Kseniia. So think about this one. Let me answer this question to Slavena very quickly, who is asking about the camera and the mic that I'm personally using. Everyone here is using, I believe, some really interesting technologies. Spencer can also share some opinion on his tech. Spencer, what was the mic that you were using? What was that? What was it?
I'm using a Rode NT USB Plus.
NT USB Plus. All right.
Yeah.
So Slavena, my camera is a Sony Alpha 6300. So that is the camera that you're seeing right now. It's not a webcam, obviously, and this is not a virtual background. You can guess by the movement. No virtual backgrounds here. And the mic that I'm using, both me and Spencer recently upgraded our mics. That's why, by the way, we delayed the start of the webinar, because we were discussing that part. My microphone is, I think it's called Shure. Yeah, I'll type it in the chat. Okay, does it work for you? All right. So, Spencer, you first. Final thoughts. One very quick tip on overall, what should people do so that they get their presentation in the best possible way? What are your thoughts here? One final.
I'm going to give a really boring one. Double the amount of time you spend on it. Because double the amount of time gives you more time to do everything, more time to edit it, more time to find good images, more time to practice. And the more you practice, the less you need on the screen. So double the amount of time you spend on the next one. You can't do it for every single presentation, but you know the ones that are important. You know the ones that matter. So double the amount of time you spend on it.
All right. Let's go here. What about you? What is your
I think
Okay.
something we preach is that you have to keep your objective in mind. So whatever you do, we tend to go into slides, into our specific words, into an whole analysis about your audience. But keep your objective in mind, and then it's easier to also achieve it. So always keep it in mind when you write your story, when you design your slides, and when you deliver it. That's the most important thing.
All right. Kseniia, what about you? Final one.
Keep things simple, direct, relatable, and do a dry run.
And do a dry run. Just one?
A few, maybe few, maybe even in front of the group of people, your friends, your relatives, I don't know, your wife.
Yeah,
husband.
of course. Why not? Overall, I would also kind of wrap this up with supporting what Spencer was saying. Double the time that you prepare for an important presentation. Yeah, double the time. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is 58 minutes already. First, to all of you three, thanks for joining. And thanks for joining us also for the upcoming conference on the 28th of April, Present to Succeed, that's happening in Sofia, Bulgaria, and online. So it's a hybrid conference also. So whoever doesn't know about the conference yet, presenttosucceed.com. All of those three people, wonderful people that are here, will join us live in Sofia. But of course, if you cannot join us in Sofia, Bulgaria, you can join us online. I will just do a very quick, very short message here and very quickly say to Slavena, I cannot write in the chat, but I'll find you on LinkedIn and share a link with you to the camera and the mic that I'm using so that you have them. And again, thank you everyone that joined us and that was so active during this 1 hour. Hopefully we answered all of the questions in the way that, or in a way that you expected us to answer. So thanks again for joining. Hope you enjoyed it. And we all, I believe, hope that we are going to see you at Present to Succeed. Thanks everyone. Thanks Spencer, Kseniia, everyone for joining.